All right, we are learning Pesachim Daf Kuf Ches Amid Beis. This is like a classic. This one. This is great. Okay, we're actually going to start on Kuf Ches Amid Aleph. Bottom line, Kuf Ches Amid Aleph. V'Amr Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi also said. Yes, this is going on that he said before that a shamish is she'achal kazayis matzah. So we have another member from Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. V'Amr Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. Nashim Chayavais ba'arba kosos halalu. Women are obligated in these 4 cups of wine. Why? Sha'af hein hayu ba'isa hanes, because they were as well part of the miracle. So here we have Machlokes, Rashi and Tosfos. What is that miracle? What are they a part of? But before that, we really have to bavar on a different question. Why wouldn't they be chayiv? Oh, so you'll say it's a mitzvah saseh shazman grama, but it's not a mitzvah saseh. It's a mitzvah derabanan. Doma derabanan. It says Tab Tosfos. V'ilav haytaima. If it wasn't for the reason of atein hayiba isanes, lo hayu chayavis mishum denashim beturis mitzvah saseh shazman grama. Like David answered, I avagav the Arba Kosos derabanan. So who says mitzvah saseh man grama applies to mitzvah derabanan? Answers Tosfos ke'ein da'iraisa tiken. There's a klal that when Chazal made rules, they did it as in the most similar vein as mitzvah da'iraisa. So mitzvah derabanan they would have exempt women from. But here the Arba Kosos hello they're chayivim because apein hayu ba'isanes they were part of the miracle. Now what does that mean? So we also have Machlokes Rashbam and Tosfos. Rashbam says, you know what it means apein hayu ba'isanes? Because b'schos b'schar nashim titkanes, first Rashbam, shehayu ba'isa adar, it's because of the righteous women of that generation that nigalu, that they were redeemed. V'chein gabi Mikra Megillah, when it comes to Mikra Megillah, the same Gemara is it's the same thing. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, nashim chayav is Mikra Megillah, and they she'apein hayu ba'isanes. What's the svar for that? Mishum de alidei Esther have. The miracle happened through a woman. V'chein gabi Chanukah, that they're chayiv in hadlakas neiros. Why? There you had Yehudis who killed the general. So apein hayu ba'isanes, Rashbam says, because they were the ikar. They were the ones who made the miracle come about. So therefore, they're also chayiv in. They're going to be chayiv in these mitzvahs derabanan. Shafein hayu ba'isanes, because they brought about the miracles. That's Rashbam's shot. Tosfos is like, that's great, but it's not what it says. The lashon of apein, they're also part of it. Doesn't sound like it was all through them. Apein sounds like they're tuffled to it, that they were like secondary almost. We also included them, but not that they're the ikar. So Tosfos doesn't like this shot. It says Tosfos, Pirush Rashbam, second Tosfos, shall yodam nigalu. Megillah, the Esther b'Chanukah, the Yehudis v'Kasha. Tosfos, the af mashma, the language of af also is mashma she'einin ikar, that they're not the essential part of the miracle. Okay. Then he brings Yerushalmi. The Yerushalmi Garis, the gears of Yerushalmi is not she'apein hayu ba'isa nes, but she'apein hayu ba'isa suffik. Interesting. Mashma, ba'isa sakana. They were in the same dilemma, the same difficult situation as the men were. That's what apein hayu. They had to say they were also part of the decree of lahashmid la'areg la'abed. So that's what Tosfos learns. Apein hayu ba'isanes doesn't mean that they were part of the miracle. I mean, they were part of the miracle, meaning that the decree was against them as well, and that was by Purim, lahashmid la'areg la'abed. What does the pasuk say? Minar ba'zakin, taf v'nashim. All right, they were included. Pesach, they were mishubades l'payre in Mitzrayim. Apein hayu mishubades, and by Chanukah. The Tosfos of lashon in Megillah is that the Gzera was worse for them, as the Gemara in Ksubas tells us that a Besula Hanises there was a Gzera that they had to be bo lehegmon tchila. They had to have relations with the local governor after they got married. So there was and the Rambam's lashon is shepashtu yedayim b'bneisehem u'b'b'mainam. That was really bad for them at that time. So they were definitely part of Isa Suffolk. The Rashbam is saying, in the Lashon of the Gemara is Avin Hayu Isa Hanes. Nace. If you're focusing on the miracle, who brought about the Geula. Tesis has this Yushami that says Isa Ba Suffolk. So he learns that it's part of the it was the Suffolk, the Gzera that they're part of. One more time?
When he says that the women are in the Arba Kosos, he also means all the other mitzvahs of Pesach.
Oh, so good kasha. So it's interesting. So matzah women are chayvin, but not because of apin hayu ba'isanes. This is the kasha. It's funny. Tesis here, the next little part of Tesis is wondering why they're butter from sukkah, which is weird because we're learning Pesachim here, right? And in Megillah, Tesis asks about matzah. It's the same Tesis, but there he asks about matzah, asks about matzah, here asks about sukkah. So let's go to the Tesis in Megillah. Tesis in Megillah says, why are women are chayiv to eat matzah? Why are they chayiv to eat matzah on Leil Pesach? The Gemara says because anybody who is chayiv in the Isra of Baal Teichel Chametz has a mitzvah to eat matzah. It's a hekesh in the pasuk. If you're chayiv in Baal Teichel that you can't eat chametz, then you have a mitzvah to eat matzah. So Tesis says, what do I need that for? Just learn out because Apein Hayu Ba'isanes. That's Tesis' kasha. Tesis gives two terutzim. First teretz is Apein Hayu Ba'isanes is a svar midrabanan. It's only going to be machayiv midrabanan. The hekesh of Misha, whoever is chayiv in the chametz, is chayiv in matzah. That's a din deraisa. So therefore, it doesn't say we don't say Apein Hayu Ba'isanes to machayiv them in matzah. Then Tesis
almost like certainly if they're involved, if they have to keep their rabbanon, for sure then they should keep the raisa. It's like
no, I mean it could be their pater midiraisa, but the rabbanon were machayev them anyway. You could have such a svara that even though midiraisa you're pater, but the rabbanon say you should do it. It's not a right if you. If the rabbanon were machayev you and something, that doesn't mean that you would be chayiv midiraisa to do it. It's not. You're only chayiv midrabanan. We'll get to that in a minute. We'll get a different akuda. But so that's what Tesis says about matzah. Then Tesis gives another teretz from Rabbeinu Yosef Shalayim. He says that they would have been pater because of the Gzera Shava Tezvav. Right? They should be chayiv, and I mean whatever they're that would be. I think that would pater them. So even if they would have been chayiv because of Apein Hayu Ba'isanes, the Gzera Shava Tezvav would have patered them, and if we need the hekesh to be chayiv them.
So why can we go backwards? Pesach is first. To deal with that before you
No, but again, the question is, if I wouldn't have had the question, how do you know that they're chayiv in matzah? Right. So we want to say that they should be chayiv in matzah because of Apein Hayu Ba'isanes. Okay, but then it sounds like there's a hierarchy in drushes that would have machayiv you, but the Gzera Shava Tezvav would be stronger than that svar, and that would pater them, and therefore I need the hekesh to be machayiv them. That's how it would go. The nekuda though that we want from there is that Rabbeinu Yosef holds that Apein Hayu Ba'isanes is a svar mid'iraisa. It would be machayiv them mid'iraisa. For drinking it could have been machayiv them in eating matzah. Okay, that's Ba'isanes. Now. Second, something else I want to tell you here. Okay, I don't remember. Says the Gemara Vayter. That's we're talking about something else here. I forgot what. Apein Hayu Ba'isanes, the chayiv sukkah. Oh, let's just finish off sukkah over here. So practices. Now, what about v'hodamrin the p'turas misukah? Why do we say that women are sukkah? Avagav the Apein Hayu Ba'isanes. Keep it sukkah shafti. Pasam ba'asei de'iraisa. So So Taisus gives the answer that Taisus gave over there, that is midiraisa, but Kosos Rabbanan think Nagam Anashim giving Shoy Baisanes. So Taisus here it says, like the first teretz in Taisus in Megillah, that Apein Hoy Baisanes is only a sort of Mechayev the midrabanan, and if the Torah patters them, from a mitzvah, because the mitzvah says Shazman Grama, Apein Hoy Baisanes, we're not going to be Mechayev the midrabanan. It's an important point. Meaning, the Sukkah tells you that it's a mitzvah says Shazman Grama, and that women are putter from. They're exempt from that. How do we know that? No, that's deraisa. That concept that women are putter from mitzvah says Shazman Grama is deraisa. Yes, that's a din deraisa. Women are putter. We learn it from what? I don't know. Someone in Shema. I don't know if it was Tefillin or I don't remember. But it's a drush, the Gemara in Kedushin. You know, Chavtes after that Mishnah. Mishnah on Chavtes tells you that they're pater, and then like the Gemara on I don't know, like Lamed Dollar or something goes through the drushes, Lamed Gimel. So that's why they're pater. So now would you say that we should be machayiv women midrabanan because of Apein Hoy Baisanes? That is says no. The Torah paters them, the Rabbanan are not going to be machayiv them from the Svar. But on a mitzvah, the Rabbanan, then they would be machayiv them because of Apein Hoy Baisanes. So that's interesting. Even though we say that, that's how the whole thing started here. Even though we say that the Rabbanan are misakin ke'ein da'iraisa, so you'd say you should apply the rule of mitzvah that they're pater from mitzvah shezman grama. We don't do that. Right? That's we say Apein Hoy Baisanes would still be machayiv them, but we're not going to say Apein Hoy Baisanes to be machayiv them on something that the Torah paters them from. So the Torah paters them from Sukkah. We're not going to have Apein Hoy Baisanes be machayiv them in Sukkah. Okay, so but they are chayiv midrabanan in Arba Kosos, like and Mikra Megillah and Ner Chanukah, because Apein Hoy Baisanes givaldik. Now, let's go a little further. We'll come back to Haggadah and Sipur Tzias Mitzrayim. Amar Yehuda Mishmul. Arba Kosos halalu tzarich sheyehi bahen kedei mezigas kos yafa. Number one, we're going to go through some halachas of Arba Kosos now. The Arba Kosos need to have kedei, an amount of wine, which would be moizig a kos yafa, a nice cup. A kos yafa is like a kos of birchas hamazon. The shir that you would be moizig, the rule, your chada atlas, is 1 part wine and 3 parts water. So the part wine would be a reva revius, a quarter of a revius, and you need 3 parts water to bring you up to a revius. Okay, so the shear of kadei mezigas kos yafa is a revius of wine. That we're going to see later on in the Gemara. Okay, that's how much you need. That's also, it's clear like that in the Gemara. The Rashbam brings the Gemara in Hamaitzi Yayin that talks about what you chayiv, how much wine you have to be mitzi, what's considered a chashav shir to be chayiv on Shabbos for. So a kos yafa is a kos of birchas hamazon. The reason why the cup of birchas hamazon is called a kos yafa, Rashbam says, is because there are 10 mitzvahs or 10 hanhagas that we do with a kos shel birchas hamazon. As the Gemara in brachas talk about, you need itur. There's a lot of things you're supposed to do with a kos shel when you bench. The Gemara says you're supposed to surround it with other cups. You're supposed to have the cup needs to be shalem. It's supposed to be clean. You're supposed to rinse it out. All these, there are 10 halachas said by a kos shel bracha, by a kos of birchas hamazon. Therefore, it's referred to as a kos yafa, a nice, beautiful kos. Okay, so that's how much you need to have in your 4 cups. You need to have a revius. Shosam chai. What happens if you drink you use yayin chai? What's yayin chai? Undiluted wine. Now, I looked into this a little bit. Our wine today is not diluted. They do not add wine. They do not add water to the wine. It's just weaker. But they apparently back in the day, the wine they made was more concentrated. It was like I guess thicker. It was just a more concentrated wine. It probably also had a higher alcoholic content. What was this? No, I'm saying this is yayin chai. When it talks about yayin chai, it was like a concentrate. It was very strong, not like our wines today.
on wine. The higher percentage of alcohol.
No. So that's why it was diluted. How high? Maybe it was, let's say, 19%. I don't know. Let's say it was 18. I think you can get up to 20% and still be considered wine. So let's say it was 19%, 18%. Because it's very strong alcohol. It had a high alcohol content, and I think they diluted it. The dilution was 1 part wine to 3 parts water. That's what. But this guy drank it straight. Shasan chai. If you drank it straight, I mean, you had a whole revius of this stuff. Okay, the halach is yatsa. You fulfilled your mitzvah. Now Rashbam says you're yatsa, but it doesn't say anything. I thought he said something. Shemas gamayim yatsa. What? Rashbam. I thought Rashbam said something about this, but he says mashma d'lechatchila. I'm the third tesis. Mashma d'lechatchila by meziga. Meaning the way this says it is shasan chai yatsa. If you did that, you were yatsa the mitzvah. But it's not the way it's supposed to be done. You're supposed to be moizig the kais. Okay. Shasan chai yatsa. I thought he said that it's not a mitzvah in a mifchor. I don't know what that is. What's that? You mean what happened? After they diluted it, it was much weaker. Yeah. Right. There was probably like 6 or 7, maybe. I mean, if we're right on our percentages, I'd have made that up. I have no idea. Well, then it just turns into they call it what do they call it? Brandy, and then when it goes higher, it becomes sherry. So I don't know. It could be brandy. Again, I don't know how halachically we hold that once it hits a certain point, you start making a shahakal on it. Right? It loses its shame yayin. So I don't know when that is. So in the shasan chai that we're referring to, I don't know what percentage that goes up to. So I don't know when they diluted it, I don't know how strong it was or how weak it was. Okay. So shasan chai yotza. Shasan bevasachas. What happens if you drink all 4 cups at once? Now, what does that mean? You drink it all at once. So we have a machlekes Rashi and Rashbam. Rashi said you poured all of your wine. So let's say you're going 4 ounces as a revius. Let's say 3 ounces as a revius. So you put 12 ounces into a cup and you drank it. So have you fulfilled your mitzvah? Is that bevasachas? So Rashbam, that's what Rashi learns. Rashbam says that's ridiculous. That's just having a big cup of wine. That's not 4 cups of wine. That's 1 big cup of wine. So Rashbam says bevasachas means you didn't do it al haseder. You didn't do it with kadesh, geula, berch zamazon, and halal. You drink it after every few minutes. You had another cup of wine. So that's bevasachas. Says what's the halach if you show some bevasachas? Yatsa. I skipped. Show some chay yatsa. Show some bevasachas yatsa. I'm sorry, this is the middle of a statement. The Gemara is going to go through each one. If you gave to drink to your kids or other people in the house, you also fulfilled the mitzvah. Now the Gemara goes back and explains each case. I was getting confused here. Okay. Shasan chai. When Rav Yehuda says in Shmuel that if you drink it, chai, you're yotza. Amar Rava, yidayayin yotza. Yidei chayras the law yotza. You fulfilled your mitzvah of yayin, but you did not fulfill your mitzvah of chayras. Now, what are these 2 things that we're talking about? So the Rashbam, it's like halfway down in the wide line, towards the end of the line, at the end of the line. He says, Yedei yayin yatsa. Rashbam says, Sheshosa Arba Kosos. Listen, you drank 4 cups of wine at the right time. You did that fine, but Yedei chayras lo yatsa. Kelayma. Ein zu mitzvah shalema. This is not the complete mitzvah. She'in chashivas el b'yayin mazug. Because this is not, there's no chashivas. It's not a way you drink. You don't drink such strong wine. So you weren't yoitza the mitzvah min hamuvcher. And he just adds in, v'hanimil b'yayin shalem. This is dafka in their days. The darat chat plus, where they would dilute it 1 to 3. Al b'yayin shalanu, l'bay mezika. But our wines don't require mezika because they're not so strong in the first place. Okay, so we don't have to be meizigar yayin. We don't have to dilute our wine. But those days you did, and you weren't yaitzi because you didn't drink. You didn't use a chash of a wine. You didn't do it in the proper way. That's how Rashbam learns. The Brisker Rav says the pshat in like the Rav and the Yedei Yain is a little funny because we're going to see it's going to change in a minute. So he says you say that there are two dinim in Arba Kosos. There's a halacha of drinking, making one din is like a regular birchas, a koshel bracha. There's a din of having a koshel bracha, and there's another din of having the alakaisis be'aseba. One is meaning each cup that you have is a regular koshel bracha, and it's also an Indian of having dalakaisis be'aseba, or derecheres he calls it, having dalakaisis derecheres. So he's saying Yedei Yain, by using Yain Chai, you weren't Yaitz the koshel bracha, because that's not the way you drink a koshel bracha. But the aspect of the mitzvah that you did, maybe it's the opposite. Yedei Yain Yatza is the din of koshel bracha, and the cheres of having Arba Kosos becheres, that you're not Yetzer, because you didn't do it in a derech cheres. That's his idea. No, it means I don't mean you didn't drink. Means derech cheres. You have to have Daled Kosos the way of a free man, a derech chashuv, derech cheres, which would be having yayin mazik, having diluted wine. Yayin chai is not the way you should drink wine. Yedei yayin yatz, that means your mitzvah of having a koshel bracha, you were yotza, but Yedei cheres lo yotza. Drinking the Daled Kosos derech cheres, that you weren't yotza. That aspect of the Daled Kosos. There are two inyanim in Daled Kosos. One is a koshel bracha. One is Indian of cheres. So in the meaning, of having 4 cups of derech cheres. So if you're using yayin chai, that aspect you're not going to have. That's number 1. Next case, shosam bevasachas. If you drink it all at one time, Rav Amar. Now Rav comes along and says, Yedei Yayin Yatza, Yedei Arba Kosos lo Yatza. Very good. You were Yotzi Yedei Yayin, but Yedei Arba Kosos lo Yatza. So Brisker Rav will say his same shikotera here. Yedei Yayin means now you had a koshel bracha was fine, but you didn't have your Arba Kosos derech cheres. The Rashban has a different shot. I mean, when he's not saying shot in the Rashban, the Brisker Rav. He has like this. Yedei Yayin. What yayin are you yotza by drinking all? Again, you just drank 4 cups in a row. It wasn't the way the Rashban learns. It wasn't al haseder. So what were you yotza? You're yotza. He said you're not yotza Daled Kosos. Daled Kosos were misukin on 4 parts of the seder, but you were yotza Yedei Yayin. What does that mean? Yedei Yayin. What obligation did I fulfill? Says the Rashbam, mitzvah simchas yomtiv. There's a mitzvah to have simchas yomtiv. And you drink, way you fulfill that is by having wine. So you're yotza that mitzvah of simchas yomtiv. Okay, that's nice.
In the Gemara, it sounds like there's really 3 colors of the mitzvah, right? Yayin, cheres, and Arba Kosos.
Yes, agreed.
But the Brisker Rav is only saying there's 2.
Correct. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't have a chance to learn the whole shtickle. He was saying Pshat and Rambam, I think, that in here. But that's what so I'm with you. Good, it's a good hara. We have Yedei Yayin, we have the Arba Kosos, and we have the Yedei cheres. Okay, that was number 2. Number 3 is Yedei Yatza. Where to go? Hishke mehen lebanav b'nei beisai Yatza. What is that? What's the, so if you gave to drink, v'hu v'amarav Nachman bar Yitzchak v'hu de ishti ruba de kasa. That's as long as you drink Rav Kais. Now, who are you giving out the rest of this wine to? So you can give it out to Katanim, but if you to Gedalim, to other people that are chayiv and mitzvahs, they also need to drink their own kais. So l'chayra, you're giving it out to little kids. L'chayra. Okay, what's the Rav Kais that we're talking about here? What does it mean that you drink Rav Kais? So, the Taisa says, Ruba de Kasa, there's a Rosh Baimer, I just can't find it. Ruba de Kasa says, Taisa Hainu Kamale Lugmav. That means you drink a cheekful. You should drink a whole revius. Okay? Sounds like Tesis understands, like we said before, that when you have a kosher bracha, no matter how big it is, you have to drink a b'diavad amali lugma, a cheekful, which is a rave revius, but lechatchila you should drink a whole revius. Fantastic. One Risha, I forgot to, it's slipping my mind, learns that no, there's a special in by Dalit Kaisis because there was a takana to drink 4 cups. You actually have to drink 4 cups, which means that you're supposed to drink either rave of the kais or the entire. You really should drink the whole kais. But Rubei Kakuli would say you could drink a majority of the cup. L'chatchila we're chayshish for that shita, and therefore, if you're going to use a big cup, you're supposed to drink the whole thing. Now, obviously, you don't have to. You're yaitza if you just drink a revius or even just a rave revius. But if you want to be yaitza the shita that hold that you need rave kais by the Dalit kaisis because it was like a takana of Dalit kaisis, you're supposed to drink the whole cup. And that's why we said the best thing to do is, if you want to be machmir, is to get a cup that just holds a revius. Now, you got how big is a revius? So the smallest share of a revius, I shouldn't say the smallest, but the smallest acceptable share of a revius is 2.9 ounces or 3 ounces. The new cut glasses that I bought for the shul are 3-ounce cut glasses. So that's a great idea. If the first night is Shabbos, really for the first kais, which is Kiddush, that's a deraisa, so you're supposed to be machmir. You should have a larger shear for Kiddush. So the larger shear, it depends how from you want to be. Ramesh's shear is like 4.2 ounces. The Chazanish's shear is like 5 point something ounces. So for the first for Kiddush or for Kiddush and for sure on Friday night, you should be machmir for a bigger shear of a revius. But for the rest of the cases, you could do 3 ounces is definitely acceptable. Find a silver cup that's 3 ounces. I think my Ali Malchba, the one, I think he made one actually. If you go to 925, I think Holzberg, I forgot his first name. He made his own cup that he made a cup that's 3 ounces, I think, or maybe 3.5 ounces. So they're definitely, again, because then you got the sheet that holds that Dalit kaisis. It's not a regular kosher bracha. Kosher bracha, there's no halacha to drink the whole cup. But by kaisis, we call it Dalit kaisis. So there's the in the kais, and then when it says, and the Gemara says, you're supposed to drink ruba de kasa. That's because ruba de kakula, but you're supposed to drink a whole cup. So there's the in to drink the whole cup by the Dalit kaisis. Great. Let's go weiter. Says the Gemara. Meisvei. The Gemara has a kasha. Dalit kaisis halalu tzarich sheyehei bahen kedei revius. This brisa says that these 4 cups need to hold a revius. And the Gemara says a few more halachas, and that could be echad chai, whether it's undiluted, ve'echad mazug, or whether it is diluted, echad chadash, whether it's new wine, which is maybe grape juice or just inferior quality, ve'echad yashin, maybe it's very old, which is also weakens the wine, not as good. Rabbi Yehuda Aimer, so all that's fine. Rabbi Yehuda Aimer tzarich sheyehei by tam umari yain. You got to make sure that it has a tam of yain. It's got to taste like wine. And he disagrees. He holds that if it's new or it's very old, where it loses its tam, that would not count. You wouldn't be able to do that. And Rabbi Yehuda also says that it needs to have a mari yain. It's got to look like wine, meaning it should be red. Okay, this is Rabbi Yehuda shita. I don't think we pass like that, but it can't be because people use grape juice. But or just a weak wine, and Maria, he says it should be red. Okay, that's the brisa. Why? What's the kasha from this brisa? Ketani mias. We see in this brisa that it says today revius. Yet you need to be. Yet your cup needs to hold a revius. The amrit, and you said before that it just needs to have a kais yafa. Today mizigas kais yafa. And the Gemara's havamin is that these are 2 different shiurim. And says the Gemara, Amri, idi v'idi thad shiurihi. It's the same shear. Meaning, because what does it mean when it says, Mai kadei mezigas kais yafa? Does it mean that there's enough to be meiziga kais yafa? The Ka'amar that was said before, that's the kol chad b'chad. That for each cup, the havilu kulu revius. That you'll have a revius altogether for each cup. That's the share of Kedem Mezigas Kaisafa, that you'll have a revius of wine altogether for each cup. Givaldik. So that ends up, there's no steer in the Gemara, no kasha, and you'd have a revius for your cup of wine. Rabbi Yehuda, Gemara now discusses Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda, tam umari. You need to have the flavor of wine and needs to look like wine. Amar Rav, my time with Rabbi Yehuda. Where does Rabbi Yehuda get this from? So he says, the pasuk says, Al Teira Yayin. Don't look at the wine. Ki Yisadem, because of its beautiful color, it's going to get you tempted to want to drink it. And you'll end up getting shikah, the pasuk says. So don't look at the wine, Ki Yisadem, when it's nice and red in your cup. Don't look at it, because that'll tempt you. But he says, you see that wine is meant to be red. Okay, we go out of Paskin. The Ramah says you can use white wine. And there's a preference because red is zecher to the dam, maybe, right? There's a little zecher to that. He says in places where there are blood libels, he says you shouldn't use red wine, you should not use white wine. But ultimately, it comes down to preference. You're supposed to use the wine that you like the best for delicacies. Okay, now I want to go back for a moment. I want to talk about women's chiyuv in Haggadah. Are women obligated to say Haggadah? They chayiv in the midst of Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim. So, it could go like this. Let's go back to Avhein Hayu Bais Hanes for a minute. Maybe Avhein Hayu Bais Hanes should also be machayiv women in Haggadah. Now let's say even more, meaning if you hold your Dalet Kosos need to be done al haseder, right? That is what we said. Shasam b'vasachas. Rashbam learned that means you drank it all at once. You didn't do it al haseder. So l'chayra, that would mean that Dalet Kosos require you to do it al haseder. So that really should be machayiv women. And well, chayiv and kiddush anyway, but they'll be chayiv to say the Haggadah, so they could say Dalet Kosos after Haggadah, and they could say the Birchas HaMakos and Birchas HaMaz, and they could say a kais on halal. That should require this. The fact that they're chayiv and Dalet Kosos l'chayra should machayiv them to do these things. Now, Sibur Yetzias Mitzrayim is a mitzvah d'oraisa. V'gat levin chayemahu. Chayra, that should be a mitzvah saseh man grama. Because the mitzvah is to do, but that's now shaykh to say, well, since you're chayiv in, that's right. So this would be already a chiddush now to say that really they're pater, but we're going to be machayiv them midrabanan because Avhein Hayu Bais Hanes. Tezit says we don't do that because, like we said by sukkah, we're not machayiv women in sukkah because the Torah patered them already. So for them to be chayiv in because of Avhein Hayu Bais Hanes, when the Torah patered them, that will be shver. So I'm not sure how we get around this, but I think we do say women are chayiv in the midst of Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim, I think, and I was my svara. I'm saying that l'chayra, that once they're chayiv in yain, that should require them to say the things that are necessary to drink the wine on. Right. So that's like it gets in the back way. I don't remember, but I'm saying according to Taisus, it comes out a little shver because Avhein Hayu Bais Hanes says we will not be machayiv women in something that they're pater midiraisa from. There are those I can't remember. I think somebody holds that women are chayiv midiraisa. What happened? Correct. That's why Avhein Hayu Bais Hanes could be machayiv them.
Oh, I was looking here about
Okay. Shasam Chai. All right, we don't have to go into that too much. What else I want to say here? Okay. I think we did a pretty good job on this page. All right, I think we'll stop here. Terrific.